The crystal wine glasses clinked as Vanessa raised hers in another insufferable toast. I counted the seconds until I could escape this suffocating dining room with its mahogany panels and judgmental stares. My mother-in-law's voice dripped honey-coated venom as she spoke. To family legacy, she proclaimed, her eyes fixed on me, and to knowing one's proper place in society. I'm Selena, and 6 months ago, I made the mistake of thinking love could conquer old money's disdain for new media. My lifestyle brand had just hit 1 million followers when I married Maggie Hughes. Now, I was watching it all unravel over foie gras and thinly veiled insults. Speaking of proper place, Vanessa continued, setting down her glass with practiced precision. I noticed you're still posting those little videos, Selena. What do you call them? Stories? Reels, mother, Maggie corrected, squeezing my hand under the table. Once, that gesture meant support. Tonight, it felt like a warning. Did you see her latest one? Kennedy, my sister-in-law, pulled out her phone. She's teaching people how to thrift shop. Thrift shop. She emphasized each word like she was describing something obscene. I help people find affordable fashion alternatives, I said, keeping my voice steady. Not everyone can afford. Darling, Vanessa interrupted. When you married my son, you joined one of Boston's most respected families. We have a certain standard to maintain. The butler appeared with dessert, but my appetite had long since vanished. Yahir, my father-in-law, hadn't spoken a word all evening, but his disapproving glances said enough. After dinner, Maggie led me to his study. The room smelled of leather and privilege, and I knew what was coming before he opened his mouth. We need to talk about your social media presence, he said, pouring himself another drink. Mother's right. It's becoming an embarrassment. An embarrassment? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My content helps people, Maggie. Real people. Real people don't matter to our circle, he snapped, then softened his tone. Baby, you're not just Selena the influencer anymore. You're a Hughes. And that means I have to disappear? It means you need to grow up. He set down his glass hard enough to make me flinch. The charity gala is in 3 months. Mother's already worried you'll somehow mess it up. I've done nothing but try to fit in with your family, I said, feeling the familiar pressure behind my eyes. I've changed my wardrobe, my speech, even my friends. But not your career. Maggie walked to the window, his back to me. It's time to choose, Selena, your little clown show or this family. The words hit like a physical blow. Clown show? Is that what you really think of my work? He turned, his expression hard. Delete your accounts, all of them, tonight. And if I don't? Then perhaps we made a mistake, thinking you could be one of us. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I pulled out my phone, my hands surprisingly steady. Opened Instagram. 1,200,000 followers watched my daily life, trusted my advice, formed a community I'd built from nothing. Fine, I said quietly. Watch. Click. Settings. Click. Delete account. Click. Confirm. Maggie's smile was triumphant. I knew you'd make the right choice. I stood up, smoothing my designer dress, a gift from Vanessa that never quite felt like me. I need some air. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone again and opened my messages. Found the conversation with Samuel, my best friend, and the only person who truly understood what I'd been through. I'm ready, I typed. His response came instantly. About damn time. Operation Phoenix? I glanced back at the study door, where my husband was probably already calling his mother with the good news. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd finally silenced me. Yes, I replied to Samuel, but bigger, much bigger. Another message popped up. You sure? Once we start? I thought about Vanessa's smug smile, Kennedy's mockery, Yahir's silent judgment, and Maggie's betrayal. My fingers flew across the screen. They wanted me to choose between my voice and their family. They never considered I might choose myself. Samuel's response made me smile for the first time that evening. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. I walked to my car, the cool night air clearing my head. They thought they'd killed my brand tonight. Instead, they'd just helped birth something far more powerful. Something that would make them regret ever trying to dim my light. Let them celebrate their victory. They had no idea what was coming. "Perfect," Samuel said, adjusting the lighting in his downtown studio. "Now tilt your head slightly. We want mystery, not anonymity." 2 weeks after deleting my main account, I stood before the camera wearing a sleek black mask that covered the upper half of my face. The rest of my outfit was simple, a white button-down and black slacks. Professional, powerful, nothing like the colorful, approachable style I'd worn before. "You sure about the mask concept?" I asked, watching Samuel fiddle with camera settings. "Trust me, people are fascinated by the unknown. Plus, it'll drive your in-laws crazy trying to figure out who's behind Parallax when it blows up." We'd spent days crafting the perfect launch strategy. Parallax Initiative wouldn't be just another lifestyle brand, it would be a movement. Female entrepreneurship, mental health advocacy, and genuine philanthropy, not the performative kind I'd witnessed at Hughes' family events. "Ready?" Samuel asked. "Remember, keep your voice slightly lower than usual." I nodded, took a deep breath, and faced the camera. "Welcome to Parallax," I began, "where perspective changes everything. Today, we're talking about authentic success in a world obsessed with appearances." 3 hours later, we had enough content for our first week of posts. As Samuel edited, my phone buzzed with a text from Meki. "Mother's hosting brunch tomorrow. Wear the Chanel suit she bought you." I texted back a simple, "Of course," while Samuel snorted. "How's life as the perfect Hughes wife?" he asked. "Exhausting." I showed him a photo from last week's charity committee meeting. "Look at this." Vanessa actually patted my head like a dog and said, "I'm finally learning." "Use it," Samuel said, not looking up from his computer. "Channel that rage into something productive." He was right. Every condescending comment, every forced smile, every memory of Meki's betrayal, it all fueled Parallax's mission. The next morning, I sat through brunch in Vanessa's sun-drenched conservatory, playing my role perfectly while my phone silently exploded with notifications. Our first video had gone live. "Selena, darling," Vanessa cooed, "you seem so much more settled now that you've given up that internet nonsense." "Thank you," I replied, buttering a croissant. "I'm learning so much about real philanthropy from you." Kennedy nearly choked on her mimosa. "Please, like you could ever understand what we do. Our annual gala raises millions." Speaking of millions, Royal, their event coordinator, burst into the room waving his tablet. "You won't believe who just committed to sponsoring this year's gala." Vanessa straightened, pearls gleaming. "The Andersons finally came through? Better? There's this new organization, Parallax Initiative. They're offering $500,000, plus they're bringing in some major tech investors." I sipped my tea to hide my smile while Vanessa frowned. "Parallax? Never heard of them. Who runs it?" Royal scrolled through his tablet. "It's anonymous, but they're making waves. Their mental health program just funded 3 new clinics in underserved areas." "Anonymous charity is so tacky," Kennedy scoffed. "Probably new money trying to buy their way in." Later that night, I sat in my home office, reading messages from followers. One caught my eye. "Dear Parallax, I was ready to give up on my small business. Your video about surviving toxic workplaces gave me courage. Today I quit my soul-crushing job to pursue my dreams full-time. Thank you for showing me my worth." Tears blurred my vision. Samuel was right. This was bigger than revenge. My office door opened and Meki walked in. I quickly switched tabs to a cooking website. "Working late?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Just looking up recipes for your mother's dinner party." He came closer, peering at my screen. "You've changed so much lately. Mother's actually proud." The words hit like acid. I used to crave their approval. Now it felt like chains. "I'm trying to be worthy of the Hughes name," I said softly. "You are." He kissed my forehead. "As long as you remember your place." After he left, I opened my private browser and logged into Parallax's account. Our follower count had hit 100,000 in just one day. Comments poured in, each one a testament to real impact, not social posturing. My phone buzzed with a text from Samuel. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? I thought about Mekki's kiss, tainted with condescension, about Vanessa's proud smile, thinking she'd broken me, about Kennedy's constant reminders of my unworthiness. "Phase 2, I typed back. "Let's show them what real influence looks like." The mask I wore for Parallax might hide my face, but for the first time since my wedding, I felt truly seen. "More caviar, darling." Vanessa held out the crystal serving dish, her smile as artificial as her highlights. 2 months had passed since I'd reformed, and she'd taken to parading me around like a prize poodle. "Thank you, Mother," I replied, accepting a small portion. Across the table, Kennedy rolled her eyes. "At least she's learned proper portions now," Kennedy stage whispered to her friend Sophie. "Remember when she used to pile her plate like she was at a buffet?" I focused on my caviar, remembering the latest Parallax video we'd filmed yesterday, a scathing commentary on food shaming in high society. It had already racked up 500,000 views. "Ladies," Royal breezed into the dining room, his tablet perpetually in hand. "We need to discuss the seating arrangements for the gala. The Parallax representatives are requesting a full table." Vanessa's fork clinked against her plate. "A full table? Who do they think they are?" "They're our biggest donor this year," Royal reminded her. "And their guest list is impressive. Tech CEOs, social impact investors, even that young YouTube sensation, Sarah something." "Sarah Garrett?" Kennedy perked up. "She has 20 million subscribers. Mother, we should definitely give them the table." I hid my smile. Sarah was one of my first mentees under the Parallax brand. She had no idea who I really was, but she'd become the perfect voice for our community. "Fine," Vanessa sighed, "but keep them away from the main family table. We don't need new money mixing with old guard." Royal made a note, then hesitated. "There's one more thing. They're requesting 5 minutes of speaking time during the program." "Absolutely not," Vanessa's voice rose sharply. "The gala program is a carefully curated tradition. We don't let sponsors give speeches. The donation is contingent on it," Royal said carefully. "And it's not just the 500,000 anymore. They're offering to match all donations made that night." The room fell silent. Even Kennedy stopped texting. "Well," Vanessa finally said, smoothing her napkin, "I suppose we could make an exception. Just this once." Later that afternoon, Mekki found me in the garden, supposedly reading but actually approving final cuts for next week's content. "You're different lately," he said, sitting beside me on the marble bench. I quickly closed my laptop. "Different how?" "Calmer, more appropriate." He touched my cheek. "I knew you'd adapt eventually. The Hughes way is always better." "The Hughes way," I repeated, remembering how he used to defend my independence, my creativity, my voice. "Before the marriage, before his mother's influence won." "Mother wants us to host the pre-gala dinner," he continued. "Think you can handle that without embarrassing us?" "Of course, darling." I gave him my best society smile. "I've learned so much from your family." That evening, I met Samuel at our secure studio space. He was editing footage of our latest philanthropy project, a women's shelter we'd funded in silence while the Hughes family plastered their name on hospital wings. "Sarah's confirmed for the gala," he said as I walked in. "She's bringing her whole team to document everything." "Perfect." I sat down, pulling up our timeline. "What about the other guests?" "All set. 3 tech billionaires who hate old money pretension, 5 social impact investors, and that fashion designer Vanessa's been trying to get into her circle for years." I nodded. then showed him my phone. Look what Kennedy posted today. It was a photo of me at brunch, caption reading, "So proud of my sister-in-law for finally growing up and leaving her internet addiction behind." Class over clicks. Samuel snorted. She's going to eat those words with a silver spoon. Speaking of eating, I pulled out an envelope. The menu for the pre-gala dinner. Mackey's letting me host. They really think they've won, don't they? Completely. I started pacing. Today, Vanessa actually said she's considering letting me join the charity board next year if I keep proving myself. Samuel stopped editing and turned to face me. Having second thoughts? No, I said firmly. But sometimes I look at Mackey and remember how he used to be, before they poisoned him with their prejudice. He made his choice, Samuel reminded me gently. He chose their world over your truth. My phone buzzed. Another text from Vanessa. Darling, don't forget to wear the blue Dior tomorrow. Kennedy says you tried on something contemporary at lunch. We must maintain standards. I showed Samuel the message. 3 more weeks until the gala. Think we can maintain this charade? He pulled up our latest analytics. Parallax had just crossed 2 million followers. Our philanthropic impact had reached 8 figures. Sarah's documentary about our movement was trending worldwide. Trust me, he said, the charade is almost over. And their standards? He gestured to our impact numbers. We've already shattered them. I touched the mask hanging on our studio wall, my symbol of rebellion and redemption. 3 weeks, I whispered. Then they'll learn what real influence looks like. And with this donation, we've completed funding for 3 new schools in Ghana, I said into the camera, my mask catching the studio lights. Remember, true impact isn't about... The studio door clicked. I froze. Selena? Mackey's voice echoed through the space. Samuel lunged for the power switch while I yanked off my mask. The screens went dark just as Mackey rounded the corner. What are you doing here? He looked around the small editing suite I'd told him was a documentary rental space. Just watching some charity documentaries, I gestured to the blank screens. Research for the gala. Mackey picked up a nearby tablet, but Samuel had already locked it. Since when are you so interested in charity work? Your mother's influence, I smiled sweetly. She's taught me so much about proper philanthropy. He seemed satisfied with that answer, but his eyes lingered on the equipment. Who's your friend? Samuel. My friend stepped forward, extending his hand. I rent the space to Selena. She's very interested in traditional documentary styles. After Mackey left, promising to pick me up in an hour for dinner, Samuel collapsed into his chair. That was too close, he muttered, pulling up our security protocols. We need to be more careful. My phone buzzed with a notification. Parallax's latest post about wealth inequality had gone viral. 3 million views in 2 hours. Maybe we should slow down, Samuel suggested. The gala's in 2 weeks. We can't risk exposure now. No, I said, reading the comments flooding in. Look at this impact. We can't stop. Later that evening, during another suffocating family dinner, Kennedy couldn't stop talking about Parallax. Their latest video about performative charity was brilliant, she gushed, not realizing she was describing herself. Mother, we should reach out to them about a collaboration. Vanessa sipped her wine. They're still too mysterious for my taste. Royal, have you managed to identify any of their key people? Not yet, Royal admitted, but their influence is undeniable. The gala's waiting list has tripled since they announced their involvement. Speaking of influence, Mackey turned to me. I saw some interesting equipment in that studio today. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Oh? Looked more like a content creation setup than documentary viewing. Really? I kept my voice light. I wouldn't know the difference. Wouldn't you? His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. You used to make content, after all. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a message from Samuel. Emergency. Call now. Excuse me, I stood, grateful for the interruption. Work call. In the hallway, Samuel's voice was tense. "We have a problem. Someone's trying to hack our server." "What? Who?" "Can't tell yet, but they're good. They're targeting the files with your unmasked footage." My hands started shaking. "Move everything to the secure server, now." "Already done, but Selena—" He hesitated. "I think we're being watched. That studio visit wasn't accidental." I peered back into the dining room, where Mekki was in deep conversation with his father. "You think? Check your desk when you get home. And Selena, be careful." That night, after Mekki fell asleep, I crept to my office. The lock on my desk drawer was intact, but something felt off. I pulled it open slowly. My heart stopped. The Parallax Gala invitation, the one marked reserved honoree seating that I'd hidden under old papers, was now sitting on top, slightly askew. My phone lit up with a text from Mekki. "Still awake?" I looked toward our bedroom, where I'd left him sleeping. Another text came through. "We need to talk about your documentary project." Hands trembling, I called Samuel. "They know," I whispered when he answered. "How much?" "Not everything, but enough to be dangerous." I started pacing. "What do we do?" "Stick to the plan," Samuel said firmly. "We're too close to back down now. The gala's in 2 weeks. They can't prove anything before then." "And after?" "After won't matter. That's the point of all this, remember?" I touched the invitation, thinking of Vanessa's smug smile, Kennedy's condescension, and Mekki's slow transformation from the man I loved to someone I barely recognized. "Samuel," I said quietly, "move up the timeline. We need to finish the Ghana school footage tomorrow." "Why?" "Because I don't think we have 2 weeks anymore." I heard footsteps in the hallway. "And Samuel, get Sarah ready. If this falls apart, she needs to be prepared to tell our story." I hung up, just as my office door opened. Mekki stood there, his face unreadable in the darkness. "Working late again, darling?" he asked. "Just finalizing details for your mother's gala," I replied, sliding the drawer shut. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course you are." The door closed, and I let out a shaky breath. The game was shifting, pieces moving faster than planned. But then again, the best revenge doesn't follow a schedule. "Turn," the seamstress instructed, pinning the hem of my gown. 1 week until the gala, and Vanessa had insisted on a final fitting at her preferred atelier. "Perfect," Vanessa purred, circling me like a shark. "Navy blue, dignified, traditional. Much better than those garish outfits you used to wear in your videos." The seamstress's pin pricked my ankle. I didn't flinch. "Speaking of videos," Kennedy walked in, waving her phone. "Have you seen Parallax's latest post? They're announcing their full team at the gala." Vanessa's head snapped up. "What?" I watched Kennedy play the video, my video, filmed yesterday in the mask that now felt like a second skin. My disguised voice promised revelations that would transform Boston's philanthropic landscape forever. "About time," Vanessa sniffed. "Anonymous charity is so tasteless." My phone buzzed, a text from Mekki. "We need to discuss your gala speech. Dinner tonight. No excuses." The seamstress finished her work, and I changed back into my acceptable designer outfit. As I left the atelier, another message came through, this time from Samuel. "Sarah's documentary crew just arrived in Boston. Everything's ready." I was halfway to my car when Kennedy caught up with me. "Selena, wait." She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in slightly. "Mother wanted me to remind you about your place at the gala." "My place?" "You'll be seated at table 12, she smiled sweetly. "Away from the main family table. Can't have you accidentally speaking to the wrong people." "Of course," I matched her smile. "I know my place." That evening, Mekki was waiting in his study, a familiar folder on his desk. "Interesting reading material," he said as I entered, tapping the folder. "Want to know what I found?" My heart raced, but my voice remained steady. What are you talking about? He opened the folder, pulling out papers. Financial records, your old content creation equipment, all sold 6 months ago. But here's the curious part. He held up a document. Similar equipment purchased through a shell company 2 weeks later. You're investigating me? Protecting our family interests. He stood up, moving closer. You've been different lately. Too perfect. Too compliant. Isn't that what you wanted? What I want, he leaned in, is the truth. Are you Parallax? I forced a laugh. Me? The woman you called a social media clown? That's ridiculous. Is it? He pulled out his phone, playing a Parallax video. The hand gestures, the speech patterns. Now you're analyzing body language. What happened to you, Meki? You used to defend me against your family's paranoia. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe regret. I pressed on. You wanted me to change, to fit your family's mold. I did. And now you're suspicious because I succeeded? He sat back down, running a hand through his hair. Maybe I'm wrong. You are? I moved toward the door. And if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for the gala. Wouldn't want to embarrass the family name. The moment I left, I called Samuel. They're getting closer, I said, rushing to my car. Mackie's connecting the dots. We expected this, Samuel replied calmly. Sarah's team is already setting up the live stream for the gala. Once it starts? No, I cut him off. We need to change tactics. They're watching me too closely. What are you thinking? I started my car, heading toward our studio. Remember how Vanessa always says image is everything? Let's give her an image she'll never forget. The next morning, I attended the final gala planning meeting. Royal was reviewing the schedule when I raised my hand. Yes, Selena? Vanessa's tone was indulgent. I'd like to volunteer to be the family speaker this year. The room went silent. Kennedy choked on her sparkling water. You? Vanessa's smile tightened. Darling, the family speech is a crucial moment. We need someone who truly understands our legacy. Exactly, I smiled back. After all your guidance, who better to speak about the Hughes family's impact than the woman you've molded into the perfect society wife? I could see her calculating. The optics of refusing, the risk of letting me speak, the potential for embarrassment. Perhaps, she finally said, a short introduction would be appropriate. Perfect. I gathered my things, standing to leave. I promise, Mother, everyone will remember this speech. As I walked out, I heard Kennedy whisper, Mother, are you sure about this? Vanessa's response floated after me. Don't worry, dear. What's the worst she could do? We've tamed her completely. In my car, I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Samuel. Speech approved. Start the countdown. His response was immediate. Ready when you are, boss. Time to show them what Untamed really looks like. I smiled, touching the gala invitation in my purse. 1 week until everything changed. 1 week until they learned that some voices can't be silenced. They just learn to speak in different ways. The ballroom sparkled with old money and new tension. I adjusted my navy blue gown, Vanessa's choice, of course, and watched Sarah's documentary crew set up near the stage. They were posing as regular event photographers, but their cameras would capture every moment of what was about to unfold. There you are, Meki appeared beside me, straightening his bow tie. Mother's looking for you. Something about reviewing your speech one last time. Of course she is, I smiled, squeezing his arm. How do I look? Appropriate enough? His eyes searched my face. Almost too appropriate. Before he could say more, Royal rushed over. The Parallax representatives are here. Finally, Vanessa materialized, pearls gleaming. Let's see who's behind all this mystery. We watched as a group entered the ballroom. Samuel led them, looking sharp in his tuxedo, followed by tech CEOs and social impact investors I'd spent months cultivating relationships with. None of them knew my true identity. They'd only dealt with Parallax's masked founder via video calls. "Where's their leader?" Kennedy demanded, scanning the crowd. "Running late, apparently." Samuel approached us, playing his role perfectly. "But they asked me to deliver this." He handed Vanessa an envelope. Inside was a note. "The truth reveals itself in due time." "How dramatic," Vanessa scoffed, but I caught the uncertainty in her voice. The evening progressed according to plan. Dinner was served, checks were written, and social hierarchies were carefully maintained. I sat at table 12, watching Vanessa hold court at the main table. "Time for the speeches," Royal announced over the microphone, starting with a special introduction from Mrs. Selena Hughes. I stood, feeling hundreds of eyes follow me to the stage. Sarah's cameras tracked my every move. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and controlled. "The Hughes family has taught me so much about legacy, about proper behavior, about knowing one's place." Vanessa beamed from her seat. "They showed me that image is everything," I continued. "That silence is golden, that some voices matter more than others." The smile on Vanessa's face wavered slightly. "But tonight isn't about silence, it's about truth. And the truth is—" "Ladies and gentlemen," Royal suddenly interrupted, rushing to the stage, "we have a special announcement. The founder of Parallax Initiative has arrived." The ballroom doors opened. Every head turned. A figure in a sleek black suit and the now famous mask walked in. Samuel had outdone himself finding my body double. Same height, same walk, same presence. "What perfect timing," I said into the microphone, watching Vanessa's face. Because I was just about to discuss true philanthropy versus performative charity. Kennedy stood up. "Mother, something's wrong." "You see," I continued, "real impact doesn't need family names on buildings. It doesn't require social media bans or forced silence." The masked figure reached the stage. Vanessa was half rising from her seat, realization dawning in her eyes. "No," she whispered. I turned to the masked figure. "Would you like to show everyone who's really behind Parallax Initiative?" The figure reached up, removing the mask to reveal Sarah, the YouTube star I'd mentored, who'd agreed to play this final role. "But if she's not—" Kennedy's voice trailed off. I smiled directly into Sarah's camera. "I am." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Meggie's wineglass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. "Over the past 6 months," I continued, my voice carrying over the chaos, "Parallax Initiative has built schools in Ghana, funded women's shelters across America, and created opportunities for thousands of creators who were told their voices didn't matter." "Security!" Vanessa called out, but the cameras were rolling. Sarah's live stream was already trending. "We've generated more real impact in half a year than the Hughes family's performative charity has in a decade," I said, "and we did it without silencing anyone, without shame, without pretense." "You manipulative little—" Kennedy started toward the stage, but Samuel stepped in her way. "The numbers don't lie." I pressed a button, and the screens around the ballroom lit up with our impact statistics. 8 million followers, $12 million in direct aid, real change, not just social climbing. Mekki finally found his voice. "Selena, stop this now." "Why?" I turned to him. "Because it's embarrassing? Because it doesn't fit your family's image? You wanted me to find my place, remember?" I gestured to the ballroom, where half the guests were already sharing the live stream. "This is my place, not behind you, not beneath your family, but standing in my own truth." Vanessa reached the stage, face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this. You're finished in this town." I laughed, and the sound echoed through the speakers. "No, Mother, I'm just getting started." The cameras flashed, capturing the moment perfectly. Vanessa's fury, Mekki's shock, and me, finally standing tall in my own power. "Thank you for teaching me about legacy," I said, addressing the entire Hughes family. "I've built one of my own." The backstage area of the ballroom buzzed with controlled chaos. Sarah's crew was still live streaming. capturing every reaction as the Hughes family empire crumbled in real time. Trending #1 worldwide, Samuel announced, showing me his phone. Parallax Reveal and Selena Unmasked are dominating every platform. Royal burst through the door, tablet clutched to his chest. The donors, they're all redirecting their pledges to Parallax, even the Andersons. Of course they are. Vanessa's voice cut through the room like ice. She stood in the doorway, Kennedy and Yahir flanking her. They're all obsessed with viral moments and social media circus acts. No, Mother, Kennedy said quietly, staring at her phone. They're choosing authenticity over artifice. Look at these comments. I stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next. Would you like to read them aloud, Kennedy, or should I? You ungrateful little witch, Vanessa spat. We gave you everything. You gave me conditions, I corrected. Ultimatums. Shame. We gave you class, she shouted, losing her carefully maintained composure. We lifted you from your common little internet world and made you somebody. Samuel started recording on his phone. I was already somebody, I said calmly. Millions of people trusted my voice, my authenticity. You didn't lift me up, you tried to bury me. And now you think you've won? Yahir finally spoke, his voice cold. You've destroyed decades of social capital. No, I gestured to the live stream numbers still climbing. I've shown what real capital looks like: impact, change, truth. The door opened again. Meki walked in, his face unreadable. The press is outside, he said to no one in particular. Every major network. Perfect. Vanessa straightened her spine. We'll tell them how you deceived us, played the victim. Actually, Sarah stepped forward, camera rolling. We have 6 months of documented evidence showing exactly who played what role. Would you like to see the footage? Kennedy grabbed her mother's arm. Stop talking, Mother. You're making it worse. Making it worse? Vanessa laughed hysterically. Your father's board members are calling. Our foundation partners are distancing themselves. She's destroyed everything. You destroyed it, I said softly. The moment you decided image mattered more than impact. The second you chose cruelty over kindness. Meki moved closer, his eyes meeting mine. Was any of it real? Us? All of it, I whispered. Until you stopped defending me and started changing me. A commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Through the door, we could see donors crowding around Sarah's team, pledging support to Parallax's initiatives. Mrs. Hughes, Royal interrupted, still clutching his tablet. The Parallax Education Grant. It's been approved. 8 figures. They want to announce it now. Vanessa stepped forward. Don't you dare. He means me, I cut her off. I'm Mrs. Hughes, for now anyway. The implication hung in the air. Meki flinched. You're choosing this over family? Kennedy asked, but her tone had lost its edge. No, I walked toward the door. I'm choosing truth over pretense, impact over image, self-worth over social acceptance. Samuel touched my arm. They're ready for you. I turned back one last time. You know what the saddest part is? If you'd accepted me, my career, my voice, my passion for helping others, you could have been part of something revolutionary. Instead, you'll be remembered as the cautionary tale in my success story. You think you can walk away from us? Vanessa's voice shook. This family is still your name. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. No, Parallax is my name. Truth is my legacy. And unlike the Hughes reputation, those can't be bought or controlled. As I walked out to face the press, I heard Kennedy say, Mother, stop. Look at the donation numbers. She's already won. The ballroom had transformed. Donors who'd once kissed Vanessa's ring now crowded around Sarah, asking about Parallax partnership opportunities. Society photographers who'd documented Hughes events for decades trained their lenses on me. Mrs. Hughes, a reporter called out. What made you create Parallax? I took the microphone, aware of the Hughes family watching from the shadows. Sometimes, I said, The only way to fight silence is to create a louder truth. The cameras flashed. Behind me, I heard Mickey call my name, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of applause. Real applause, not the polite society kind. Samuel appeared at my side. Ready for phase 2? I thought about the schools we'd built, the lives we'd changed, the truth we'd uncovered. Actually, I smiled into the cameras, I think we're just getting started, because the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right, over and over again, until your truth becomes undeniable. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I stared at the email from Mickey's lawyer. 3 words stood out: dissolution of marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Samuel. Ready to film when you are. I grabbed my coat and headed to the studio, passing walls lined with photos of Parallax's impact. Smiling students in Ghana, women entrepreneurs receiving grants, digital creators breaking free from corporate chains. The trending numbers from last night's gala reveal are still insane, Samuel said as I walked in. You're the main character of the internet right now. Any word from the Hughes family? He checked his phone. Kennedy's gone silent. Yahir's foundation is hemorrhaging partners, and Vanessa, well, she's trying to spin it, but no one's buying her version anymore. I sat down in front of the camera. Let's do this. You sure about going unmasked? The time for masks is over. Samuel adjusted the lighting and pressed record. I looked directly into the lens, channeling every emotion from the past 6 months. Hi, I'm Selena. You might know me as the founder of Parallax Initiative, or maybe as the woman who exposed performative philanthropy at Boston's biggest charity gala. But today, I want to tell you my real story. The words flowed naturally now, unfiltered by fear or pretense. I fell in love with a man who promised to love all of me, my creativity, my passion for digital connection, my desire to make real change. But his family saw my work as beneath them. They demanded silence in exchange for acceptance. My phone buzzed again. Kennedy calling. I declined it. They thought they were teaching me about legacy. Instead, they taught me that true impact doesn't need designer dresses or society pages. It needs courage, authenticity, and the willingness to stand alone. Samuel gave me a thumbs up as I continued. To every creator who's been told their voice doesn't matter, to every dreamer who's been asked to shrink themselves for acceptance, this is for you. Your truth is your power. After filming, I found Sarah waiting outside. The documentary rough cut is ready, she said, pulling up footage on her laptop. We're calling it Parallax, Shifting Perspectives. The opening sequence showed my wedding day, then cut to clips of subtle emotional manipulation at Hughes family events. It ended with last night's revelation and its aftermath. Perfect, I said. Release it tomorrow. My phone buzzed again. Mickey this time. Against my better judgment, I answered. The divorce papers, he said without preamble. Mother's lawyers want to add a non-disclosure agreement. I laughed. A bit late for that, don't you think? Selena, please. Our family name. Stop, I cut him off. Your family name is exactly what I'm breaking free from. No NDAs, no silence, not anymore. I hung up and turned to Samuel. Send out the press release about the Global Education Initiative and call that women's shelter we funded. I want to visit today. Already done. Oh, and this came for you. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Kennedy. You showed me what real influence looks like, what real impact feels like. I'm sorry we tried to dim your light. K.E. My phone lit up with a notification. Vanessa had just posted a public statement attempting to discredit me. The comments section was flooded with Parallax supporters sharing stories of how our work had changed their lives. Should we respond? Samuel asked. No need, I smiled. The truth responds for itself. I walked to the window, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, the Hughes family was trying to salvage their reputation, but their world of performative charity and social constraints felt small now compared to the real impact we were making. Samuel, I called out, Remember what you said when we started this, about how revenge wouldn't bring peace? Yeah, you were right. This stopped being about revenge the moment I realized my voice was bigger than their silence. He nodded toward my phone, still buzzing with notifications. So what now? I picked up my mask, the one I'd worn as parallax, and placed it in a display case alongside photos of the schools we'd built and lives we'd changed. Now we build something bigger than revenge, I said. We build truth. My laptop chimed with an email from Royal. The foundation board wants to meet. They're considering removing the Hughes family from leadership. I closed the laptop without responding. Their world of social politics and performative philanthropy didn't matter anymore. I had real work to do. Ready for today's meetings? Samuel asked. I looked at my reflection in the window. No designer dress, no society smile, just me and my truth. Ready, I said. Let's show them what real legacy looks like. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else's world. It's building your own, brick by brick, truth by truth, until it towers over the shadows they tried to keep you in.
Greetings. My name is Sarah. At 42 years old, I find myself nestled in the comforting warmth of our living room, yet overwhelmed by an undercurrent of grief and longing as I write these words. Newfound courage stirs within me, urging me to shape my emotions into something tangible. This act of writing is not just for my own healing. It's a beacon of hope for others who might find fragments of their own stories in mine. Just a few months ago, my beloved husband Andrew and I were basking in the peace of our 18-year journey together. Then, fate cruelly snatched him away. The ache of his absence is fresh and sharp, as if time itself suspended its movement the moment I heard of his fatal car accident. The future we had dreamed of, one filled with laughter, love, and unwavering companionship, crumbled in an instant. I never imagined that at 42, I would be navigating life as a widow. The bond Andrew and I shared was profound, forged in the fires of adversity. We were like two broken souls who found healing in each other's embrace. My own journey began with abandonment, my parents lost to addiction, leaving behind emotional scars. Andrew, too, had faced his own battles, growing up with a mother, Evelyn, who betrayed him repeatedly with her promises of change, only to fall back into destructive habits, manipulating him to support her addiction before vanishing time and again. Together, Andrew and I built a love that transcended the pain of our pasts. We were each other's refuge, a place of trust and understanding, rising above the wounds life had dealt us. For a time, it felt as though we were finally free of the shadows that had haunted us for so long. 3 years had passed since Evelyn last disrupted our lives, and Andrew had come to accept that she might never change. This story is my way of processing the shared history Andrew and I created and the reality I now face without him. My hope is that it can inspire resilience in others who are grappling with their own turmoil. Our love was powerful enough to heal deep wounds, yet it wasn't enough to protect us from the cruel hand of fate. His sudden departure left me in a storm of sorrow and unanswered questions. How could life be so cruel, taking away the one person who had truly understood and accepted me? In the aftermath of Andrew's loss, I found myself wanting to retreat from the world, seeking solace in the quiet of my bedroom. But time, like death, shows no mercy. It moves on, indifferent to our pain. And so, we began the heart-wrenching task of planning Andrew's funeral. With the passing of each day, I found comfort in the support of friends and family. Together, we navigated the sorrowful farewell, ensuring that Andrew's departure was marked with the dignity he deserved. We organized a funeral at home, a space where we could honor his memory and share stories that brought both tears and laughter. Just as the atmosphere settled, with the air thick with the fragrance of freshly cut flowers, the doorbell rang. I approached the door, my heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. There, standing among the mourners, was Evelyn, Andrew's estranged mother, holding a bottle of whiskey as some kind of peace offering. She seemed out of place, her desperation for reconciliation palpable. A flood of emotion surged through me, anger, resentment, confusion mingled with a deep ache for closure. Yet, when I looked into Evelyn's tear-streaked face, something in her eyes shifted. Beneath the years of hurt, there was a flicker of understanding. I opened my arms, and she stepped forward, allowing us to embrace. The tears that flowed between us spoke of unspoken sorrows, a moment of connection that began to dissolve years of bitterness. Evelyn's quiet confessions of regret washed over me. Though the wounds she caused would never fully heal, I found in my heart a small spark of compassion. The room was heavy with a complex dance of emotions as friends and family, aware of the history between Evelyn and Andrew, cautiously welcomed her into the fold. Their support for me was clear. They set aside their own reservations to offer her a place at our table. Throughout the gathering, Evelyn shared stories of her own struggles with addiction, offering a glimpse into her pain and her desperate yearning for redemption. What began as a day of grief transformed into an unexpected step toward healing, not just for me, but perhaps for Evelyn as well. As she spoke of the remorse she felt for the harm she'd caused Andrew, I could feel my heart soften. Beneath the layers of disappointment and regret, there still flickered the love of a mother, tarnished, but not extinguished. Her words painted an intimate portrait of the son she had lost along the way, and as the service came to a close and guests began to leave, Evelyn remained behind. My sisters and I quietly tidied up, grateful for her unexpected help. In a quiet, vulnerable moment, she turned to me, her voice trembling with hope and uncertainty. "Sarah," she said, "I know I have no right to ask this, but could I have a chance to say goodbye to my son, maybe through his belongings?" I met her gaze, my heart filled with both curiosity and caution. Still, I wanted to listen. "What is it you'd like to ask?" I replied, encouraging her gently. With a deep breath, Evelyn spoke her request, and in that moment, I recognized the depth of her regret and longing, another step in a journey toward healing, both for her and for me. I paused, contemplating the weight of Evelyn's request. Her eyes searched mine, sensing my hesitation, and she quickly added, "I know it's an unusual ask, and you have every right to say no, but if I could just touch his clothes or smell his cologne, maybe, just maybe, I could feel connected to him again, even though he's gone." Despite the pain and resentment still clinging to my heart, there was something undeniably sincere in her voice, a vulnerability I couldn't ignore. She was grieving in her own way, and her remorse was palpable. I took a deep breath before answering softly, "Evelyn, I see how much you loved Andrew. The regret in your eyes is clear. If this could bring you some comfort, then yes, you may go up to his room and spend time with his things. Take all the time you need." Gratitude flooded Evelyn's expression, and she whispered, "Thank you, Sarah, your kindness means more to me than you can imagine." As she made her way up the stairs, I reflected on the day, on the morning, the unexpected moments of reconciliation, and perhaps, just maybe, a small step toward healing not only for Evelyn but for all of us touched by Andrew's life and legacy. A whirlwind of emotions stirred within me as Evelyn disappeared upstairs. Part of me hoped this act would offer her some form of closure, a way to heal the broken bond between mother and son. But another part of me remained cautious, mindful of how easily these delicate moments of vulnerability could become entangled with the past's unresolved wounds. I found myself contemplating the fragile nature of human relationships. They could be torn apart in an instant, yet they were also capable of great resilience when nurtured through understanding, forgiveness, and time. In that moment, I chose to embrace forgiveness and grace, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I might question this choice in the future. About 25 minutes later, Evelyn returned from the bedroom, her eyes swollen and red from crying. The stoic facade she usually wore had completely melted away, leaving only raw vulnerability in its place. She took a deep breath, her voice shaking as she spoke. "Thank you for allowing me this time with Andrew," she said, her words carrying a weight of genuine gratitude. "I'm truly grateful for your kindness and understanding." Her sincerity tugged at something within me, and I felt a twinge of sympathy. Despite everything, as Evelyn said her final goodbyes, a palpable sense of closure seemed to fill the room. The emotional weight of the day hung in the air like a heavy blanket, but it was also a silent testament to the complex web of feelings we had all navigated together. With heavy hearts, we watched as Evelyn left the house, each of us processing the day's events in our own way. As the hours passed and the evening sun cast a warm golden glow through the windows, my sisters and I found solace in one another's company. We shared memories of Andrew, gentle laughter easing the sorrow, and drew strength from the love that bound us together as a family. As the light outside deepened into dusk, exhaustion began to settle in. One by one, my sisters said their goodbyes, seeking rest after the long, draining day. For the first time that day, the house felt still and quiet, a temporary peace enveloping me as I sat in the comfort of my own thoughts. I found myself alone in the quiet sanctuary of my room. Enveloped in the stillness, the silence pressed in, amplifying the weight of Evelyn's earlier request, a private moment with Andrew's belongings. As the room remained silent and unmoving, my mind wandered back over the emotional journey of the day, grappling with the complexities of forgiveness and the paths we choose in our search for peace. Overcome by a deep curiosity and a longing to feel close to Andrew, even in his absence, I found myself drawn to the tangible remnants of his life. With gentle reverence, I began sifting through his belongings, each item an intimate testament to the man he was. I picked up his favorite watch, its rhythmic ticking a soft reminder of the precious moments we had shared. My fingers traced the well-worn spines of his books, imagining the stories that had once whispered to him in the quiet of the evening. Turning to the dresser, I examined the items salvaged from the car wreck, his phone, work bag, second watch, and wallet, but as I scanned the contents, a sinking feeling overtook me. The wallet was missing. Panic surged through me, and desperation crept in as I frantically searched the room. I tore through every drawer, checked every corner, but the wallet seemed to have vanished into thin air. The realization struck me with overwhelming force: the wallet retrieved from the wreckage was now gone. In my distress, I knew I couldn't solve this mystery alone. Perhaps I had been mistaken and it had never been returned to me. With trembling hands, I dialed Gary, a dear friend who had been present at the funeral and had played a key role in retrieving Andrew's belongings. As a trusted member of the police department, Gary had the skills and dedication to help uncover the truth. The phone rang, and with each passing second, my heart pounded harder, tears streaming down my face. When Gary's calm voice answered, I poured out my anguish, explaining the circumstances and the urgency of the situation. With a heavy sigh, Gary confirmed that he had indeed returned Andrew's wallet, along with the other items. Relief mixed with confusion washed over me. If Gary had returned the wallet, then where could it have gone? A chilling realization struck me like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the dark corners of my mind. The wallet could only have been taken by Evelyn, my estranged and manipulative mother-in-law, who must have seized the opportunity to snatch it while I was immersed in my grief, unaware of any ulterior motives. Taking a deep breath, I shared my suspicions with Gary, my voice trembling with a blend of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Gary reassured me with determination. Andrew was one of my best friends, and I promise you, if Evelyn had anything to do with this, we'll uncover the truth and make sure she faces the consequences. His words were like a warm embrace, sparking a flicker of hope within me. Despite the shadows that loomed and the uncertainty clouding my path, I felt a renewed sense of resolve. Gary was by my side, and together, we would delve into the murky depths of this twisted tale, uncover Evelyn's motives, and bring closure to this painful chapter of our lives. As the days passed, the weight of grief still pressed heavily upon me, but I was jolted by yet another disturbing revelation. A steady stream of bank statements sent to both my and Andrew's phones revealed troubling patterns of transactions. It started with smaller amounts, $1, $600 here, $3,000 there, but quickly escalated into a torrential flood of deductions, with sums exceeding $5,000 draining from Andrew's hard-earned savings. Fear and concern gripped my heart as I watched the relentless siphoning of his funds. It felt like a violation, a desecration of his memory that cut me to the core. With a heavy heart, I reached out to Gary again, seeking his guidance and solace in the face of this new ordeal. His voice, filled with empathy and resolve, filled the line. You need to get Andrew's cards deactivated immediately to stop these unauthorized transactions, he advised. His words were practical, urgent, but following them meant facing a harsh reality: canceling credit and debit cards, terminating subscriptions, severing financial ties. Each action was a stark reminder that Andrew was truly gone. As the anger built within me, fueled by Evelyn's audacious actions, a rebellious thought took root. How dare she squander my late husband's money with such reckless abandon? No, I resolved, I would not succumb to her wicked game so easily. I was resolved to face this challenge head-on, to protect Andrew's legacy and defend his memory from those who sought to exploit it. As I continued to deal with the turmoil Evelyn brought into our lives, a plan began to form in my mind. I decided to let her continue using the cards, giving her the false sense of security that she was getting away with it while I quietly held the power. I would gather evidence, watch her every move, and wait for the right moment to expose her deceit and reclaim what was rightfully Andrew's. This decision wasn't made lightly. It meant enduring the harsh reality of his absence for a little longer, but my resolve was unwavering. I was determined to bring Evelyn's true nature to light and show the world what she had done. I would document every transaction she made, keeping track of every dollar she spent until the moment arrived for confrontation. It was a delicate dance, letting her revel in her perceived control while I prepared to dismantle her carefully built facade. days turned into weeks, and I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Despair would hit me in waves, but each time, determination would pull me back. The loving memories of Andrew kept me strong. I wasn't going to let Evelyn tarnish his legacy. When the time came, I would confront her, and it would be unforgettable. As the weeks passed, Evelyn's actions became even more brazen. The money she continued to drain from Andrew's accounts was staggering, and each new transaction only deepened my disgust. How could she be so shameless? How could she betray her own son's memory in such a way? Every time I saw a new charge, my anger grew, but I knew I had to wait for the right moment. Then, one day, as I opened the door to my house, there she stood, Evelyn, her face twisted in a feigned expression of remorse, but I wasn't fooled. "Hello, Sarah," she said, her voice tentative. "No, you may not come in," I replied firmly, blocking the doorway. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me any longer. "I imagined as much," she said with a resigned tone, her words laced with deceit. I stood my ground, prepared to protect what remained of Andrew's life from her manipulations. Evelyn then spoke, her voice soft with what appeared to be guilt. "I imagine you've noticed that Andrew's wallet is missing." "I'm so sorry, Sarah." In my grief, I took it. I thought my time to say goodbye would be brief, so I took it as a keepsake. "Really?" I thought, struggling to conceal my disbelief. "Really?" I echoed aloud. "Yes," she admitted, her voice faltering. "It was wrong of me, but I've come to my senses. I'm going to return it." Anger surged inside me, but I kept my composure. This was my chance to finally reveal the full extent of her lies. I handed her a document, a detailed record of every penny she had stolen from Andrew, along with a breakdown of the legal charges she would now face. Her hand shook as she read it, and her eyes widened in fear and confusion. "What's this?" she stammered. "It's a record of the money you've stolen from Andrew. It also outlines the legal consequences you now face," I said, my voice steady. In an instant, her facade crumbled. She sank to the front porch, overwhelmed by the weight of her actions. Without hesitation, I called for an ambulance. When Evelyn regained consciousness in the sterile environment of a hospital room, handcuffed and facing the reality of her crimes, the truth hit her with full force. She screamed, demanding to be released, but I remained calm. I had no intention of letting her escape the consequences of what she had done. With the help of Gary, my trusted friend in law enforcement, I had gathered enough evidence to ensure that Evelyn would face the full weight of the law. We had calculated the likely amount of time she would spend behind bars, a fitting punishment for her despicable actions. Reflecting on the journey that had brought me here, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Justice was being served, but the road to this point had been fraught with pain and betrayal. Through it all, I had found a strength I never knew I had, fueled by the love and memories of Andrew. The thought that I had honored his memory by exposing Evelyn's treachery brought peace to my heart. Andrew's legacy had been safeguarded, and Evelyn would now face the consequences of her fraudulent actions. With this chapter closed, I could finally begin to move forward, free from the shadow of her deceit. It was a bittersweet victory. Andrew was gone, but his spirit could now rest, knowing that justice had prevailed. This journey had been painful, but it was also a reminder that no act of deceit goes unchecked, and that love, determination, and integrity can triumph even in the darkest of times. The truth had found its way to light, and with it, I had reclaimed my peace. Would I ever reconsider letting someone back into my life after they tried to disrupt my marriage? I never thought I would, yet here I am, having done just that. Let me explain. My mother-in-law, Madison, had never been particularly fond of me. It wasn't personal, she was simply overprotective of her son, Raymond. When her husband left her and Raymond was only 3, Madison became deeply attached to him, to the point of unhealthy dependence. Although Raymond recognized this dynamic, he still tried to keep her happy because, after all, she was his mother. Before I entered the picture, Madison had successfully driven away every woman Raymond dated, using extreme measures to ensure her son stayed solely focused on her. When I came along, her tactics didn't change. She did everything in her power to scare me off, but I refused to back down. I loved Raymond deeply, and he always stood by me. When we got engaged, Madison made a personal visit to plead with me to call off the wedding. "I can't lose my only son," she said. "He's all I have." I tried to empathize with her pain, but I stood firm. "Raymond loves you and always will," I told her, "but he loves me too, and we want to build a life together. Why are you trying to ruin his happiness? He will always cherish you." but he's not just yours anymore. Madison's response was chilling. She threatened to ruin me if I didn't end things with Raymond. I refused. In retaliation, she impersonated me to cancel our wedding plans and even tried to have me fired from my job. It was a breaking point for Raymond. Seeing her go to such lengths, he made the painful decision to cut her out of our lives. We had a small, intimate wedding instead and enjoyed 6 peaceful years without Madison's interference. During this time, we welcomed our wonderful son, Arthur. While our life was happy, I could see the pain of Madison's absence weighing on Raymond. His resolve began to waver. Eventually, Madison reached out, begging for forgiveness. She used a new number to contact Raymond and apologized profusely. "Please, Denise," he pleaded with me. "Let's give her another chance. She's all alone, and I want Arthur to have a relationship with his grandmother." I understood his feelings. My own mother had passed away, and I wanted Arthur to experience the bond of having a grandmother. But Madison's betrayal had left deep scars, and I was hesitant. "She seems remorseful," I admitted cautiously, "but let's meet her first, without Arthur, and see if she's truly changed." We met with Madison, and her apologies seemed sincere. After much discussion, we cautiously allowed her back into our lives, starting with supervised visits with Arthur. Madison followed the rules, and though I could sense lingering resentment in her, she remained civil. Raymond was happy to have his mother back, and Arthur began to form a bond with her. For 3 years, everything seemed fine, until Madison requested a day alone with Arthur. "I followed all your guidelines," she argued. "Don't I deserve some trust?" Raymond, eager to support his mother, agreed. Against my better judgment, I relented. When I went to pick Arthur up that evening, the house was locked, and neither Madison nor Arthur was there. Panic began to set in. I tried to stay calm, assuming they'd just gone to the park or out to eat. But as I called Madison repeatedly with no answer, dread began to creep in. Finally, she picked up. Her voice was unsettlingly cheerful. "Oh, Denise, what a surprise." "Madison, where are you?" "I'm here to pick up Arthur, but the house is locked," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Wouldn't you like to know?" she replied, her tone playful and evasive. "Madison, this isn't funny. Tell me where you are." "Arthur needs to come home now," I said, irritation seeping into my voice. "No can do, Denise," she said with a sing-song tone. "We're having too much fun to come back just yet." The playful tone in her voice set off alarm bells. "Madison, stop playing games," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Where's my son?" Her voice dropped, chilling me to the bone. "Do you really think you'll ever get him back?" My heart sank. Millions of terrifying thoughts raced through my mind as her words echoed ominously. Trying to keep my composure, I began recording the call. "Madison, this is serious. You need to bring Arthur back now. I'm not joking." "And neither am I," she replied coldly. "He's not coming back, ever." Her declaration froze me in place, my worst fears materializing. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. The stakes were too high to let fear take over. "Madison," I said firmly, "this isn't a game. Return my son, now." "I'm not joking, Denise. I've already told you, you're not getting your son back," Madison taunted, her voice dripping with malice. "Oh, how I wish I could see your face right now," she added with a cruel laugh. "Please, Madison, don't do this. You're scaring me. This isn't okay," I begged, my voice trembling. "I just need Arthur back. Tell me where you are, and I'll come get him." Her response was a chilling burst of laughter, the sound so unnatural it sent a shiver down my spine. My panic deepened as the reality of the situation set in. Part of me hoped it was all a cruel joke or some twisted game, but Madison's next words dashed any lingering hope. "Are you scared, my dear daughter-in-law? Does it make you sad not being able to see your son because of me? How does it feel to have someone take your child away? Why are you saying these things, Madison? What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "This is how I felt when you took my son from me," she spat, her voice filled with venom. "It doesn't feel good to be the victim, does it, Denise?" "Madison, you're acting insane. You don't know what you're doing. Please, stop this madness," I pleaded, my voice rising in desperation. Her rant continued, unhinged and spiteful. "You told me to stop seeing my son. You told me to leave, to cancel the wedding, but I didn't. And then you made him cut ties with me. Did you really think I'd let that go?" Listening to her unravel was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. Every word dripped with hatred, and her fixation on revenge was undeniable. I paced back and forth on her driveway, my thoughts spiraling with fear for Arthur's safety. Madison, what you're doing is absurd. Raymond chose to go no contact. It wasn't just me, he made that decision because he loves me, and I love him. If you'd accepted our relationship, you could have still been a part of our lives, I argued, trying to reason with her. Stop your nonsense, Denise, my son doesn't need you. We were perfectly happy before you came along and ruined everything, she snapped. Madison, you're being delusional. Raymond wasn't going to stay single forever. Life changes, it's natural. You need to accept that we're happy together, I countered. I don't care if you're happy, I'm not, and that's what matters, she shot back. You took my son away, so I took yours. It's only fair. Her words struck me like a thunderclap. She had nursed this resentment for over a decade, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Tears welled up in my eyes at the thought of her harming my son. Trembling, I switched the phone to loudspeaker and messaged Raymond, detailing the situation while trying to keep Madison talking. Madison, this has to stop. If you're upset with me, fine, but leave Arthur out of this, I implored. Oh, please, I'll do whatever I want. You took my son, so taking yours is only fair, she said coldly. Think about Raymond. You love him, don't you? What you're doing now will only push him further away. He'll resent you for this, I said, hoping to appeal to her maternal instincts. Raymond will come around, he always does, she sneered. Soon it'll be just him, me, and my grandson. We'll be happy without you. You're wrong, Madison. Raymond will never forgive you for this. He's already left his office and is trying to find you, I said firmly, hoping to unnerve her. It won't do him any good. He won't find me or Arthur. I'll tell him where we are once he realizes he made a mistake marrying you, she mocked. Her chilling confidence only fueled my determination. I was done playing her games. I've had enough. Madison, tell me where you are, or I swear I'll call the police, I shouted, my voice trembling with fury and fear. Madison's laughter cut through the phone like a jagged knife, her tone eerily calm and calculated. Go ahead, Denise, call the cops. It won't do you any good, she taunted, her words chilling me to the bone. What do you mean? What have you done with Arthur? I demanded, my voice breaking as panic surged through me. My heart pounded wildly as I stood in her driveway, desperate for answers. I'm not even in your state anymore, Denise, Madison revealed coldly. By the time the cops figure out where we are, we'll already be gone. Her words hit me like a sledgehammer, and I struggled to steady my breathing. You're sick, Madison, you need help. This is psychotic. Her response was venomous, laced with deranged confidence. It's only a matter of time before Raymond comes back to me. Arthur loves me too. We'll be a happy family, without you. You took my son away, Denise, now I'm taking yours. Her twisted logic left me reeling. I gripped the phone tightly, my mind racing with fear for my son. Meanwhile, Raymond was at the police station, filing a report and alerting authorities. I stayed on the call, trying desperately to extract more information. Then, through the phone, I heard a sudden banging noise, followed by Arthur's voice, muffled but unmistakable. Relief and dread washed over me simultaneously. What's going on, Arthur? Why have you locked yourself in the bathroom? Madison's voice snapped, her frustration barely contained. I know what you're trying to do, Grandma, Arthur shouted, defiant and brave. You lied. You said my parents wanted to surprise me, but I heard you on the phone saying you won't take me back to them. His words struck like lightning. My son had seen through her lies and was fighting back. Don't be so dramatic, Arthur, Madison coaxed, her voice dripping with manipulation. We're just having fun. Your dad will be here soon, and then the three of us can live happily without your mom. Hearing Arthur's resistance gave me a glimmer of hope. He was okay, he was fighting. My rage boiled over, and I shouted into the phone, my voice trembling with maternal determination. Arthur, Mommy is here, I promise you. Your dad and I will get you out of this. Be brave for me. Madison scoffed. There's no use, Denise. You're making promises you can't keep. But her words didn't matter. My focus was solely on my son. Arthur, listen to me. You're so brave, and we're coming for you, I said, pouring every ounce of reassurance into my voice. Then, to my astonishment, Arthur's voice came through, calm and composed. Mom, don't worry, I'm okay. I called the police on the hotel's landline, just like you taught me. They're already on their way. A wave of relief crashed over me, and my knees nearly gave out. My son had remembered the safety lessons we'd practiced. Despite his love for his grandmother, he had recognized the danger and acted wisely. What did you do? you little devil?" Madison shrieked, her panic evident. "You called the cops on me?" "He knows what to do when someone's unsafe." "Madison," I snapped, my confidence returning, "your game is over." Madison's desperation flared. "I can still take him away. Denise, he's still with me, and you don't even know where we are." Arthur's voice cut in again, firm and defiant. "There's no point, Grandma. The 911 operator says the police are already at the hotel. You can't get me out before they come. Mom, we're in Salt Lake City, Utah. Come and get me." His revelation hit me like a jolt. Madison had taken my son 3 states away, making it nearly impossible to find him without his bravery. "You brought me here, Arthur, and it was a mistake," Madison snarled, her voice bitter. "You're just like your mother, wicked." But her words no longer mattered. Arthur's courage had turned the tide, and help was already on the way. I was galvanized by the knowledge that help was close at hand, and my son had done everything in his power to ensure his rescue. Madison's audacity left me seething, but my focus remained on reuniting with Arthur and ensuring his safety. After the chilling revelations from Madison, I knew rushing headlong wouldn't resolve the situation. Madison, defiant and delusional, still believed she could manipulate her way out of anything. "Your son won't support your insane actions, Madison. He's at the police station right now, reporting you," I told her firmly. "No, he wouldn't do that to me. Raymond wouldn't betray his mother," she responded, disbelief lacing her voice. "Why don't you ask him then?" I replied. "I'm already at the police station." At that moment, Raymond arrived. He had been at the station just a few blocks away, working with the police while I kept Madison distracted. His face was a mix of anger and worry, and I handed him the phone as he approached. "Mom, what have you done?" Raymond's voice trembled with restrained fury. "How dare you kidnap my son and expect me to support this? How could you stoop so low?" Madison's face hardened with defensive indignation. "Why are you so angry with me, Raymond? I just wanted my son back. I wanted you back. I didn't hurt Arthur. I only wanted to teach your wicked wife a lesson." "Don't you dare insult my wife or justify your actions, Mom," Raymond retorted sharply. "You're the one in the wrong here. After what you've done today, I regret ever letting you back into our lives." "How could you say that to me?" Madison's voice cracked, oscillating between anger and desperation. "I'm your mother. I should come first in your life. Your wife has poisoned you against me." "That's enough." Raymond's voice was resolute. "The fact that you refuse to take responsibility says it all. I've already filed a police report, and I will be pressing charges. You're going to jail, Mom." Madison's eyes widened in disbelief. "You want me to go to jail?" "Absolutely. You'll pay for what you've done. You're never getting forgiveness. We'll file a restraining order, and you're dead to me. Stay out of our lives forever." Raymond's unflinching stance was both heartbreaking and inspiring. The bond that might have been salvaged was irreparably shattered by Madison's actions. His determination to protect our family and seek justice was unwavering, despite the pain it caused him. Madison's defiance dissolved into desperation when the police arrived at her hotel room. She cried and pleaded, begging us to intervene on her behalf, promising she'd never repeat her mistakes. But it was too late for mercy. Raymond and I embraced, tears flowing as the police took her into custody. Arthur, taken to the station for safety, was finally back in our arms later that evening. The reunion was filled with tears and reassurances. We vowed never to let him out of our sight again and praised his bravery throughout the ordeal. Madison, having spent most of her money on impulsive actions, couldn't post bail. When we informed the family of her deeds, they were appalled and severed ties with her. Alone and abandoned, Madison faced the full weight of her consequences. In court, Madison appeared remorseful, perhaps finally grasping the enormity of her actions. However, her regret came too late. The judge, unmoved, sentenced her to 6 years in prison after a psychological evaluation confirmed her actions stemmed from malice, not madness. With the restraining orders in place, Raymond and I felt a profound sense of relief. Arthur began therapy to process the trauma and, thankfully, remained the bright, joyful child we knew. Back home, free from Madison's toxic influence, we could finally rebuild our lives and cherish every moment together without fear or manipulation. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 36 years old. I was once married to Matthew, who is 3 years younger than me. The age difference never bothered either of us, at least, not until recently. I met Matthew at a party hosted by my friend Grace. Grace and Matthew had known each other from the gym. Matthew was incredibly handsome with a chiseled jawline and a strong build. He had this natural charisma and was always in high spirits. At that time I was single, and Grace, eager to play matchmaker, took it upon herself to introduce me to every eligible bachelor at the party, including Matthew. "Hey, Matthew, meet Charlotte," Grace said with a grin. "She's not only smart but also quite the catch financially." I felt a flush of embarrassment but tried to downplay it. Grace continued, "Don't be shy, it's a compliment." I smiled awkwardly, grateful for the introduction but hoping Grace might have mentioned some of my other qualities. Grace quickly agreed, "Absolutely. She's not just beautiful, but incredibly intelligent, too. You two enjoy your evening, I'll mingle with the other guests." Once Grace wandered off, Matthew, with a curious look, asked, "Why did she call you a nerd?" I explained, "I'm a graphic designer working for a software company, so I'm always busy. That leaves little time for socializing, which is why my friends jokingly call me a nerd." Matthew raised his eyebrows. "That's fascinating. I guess that's why they call you the millionaire nerd, then." We both laughed, and the evening unfolded with easy conversation, and we quickly grew closer. As time passed, Matthew and I spent more time together, dinners, coffees, and chats after he picked me up from work. At the time, he was working as an assistant at a local firm. A few months into dating, Matthew proposed. Though I loved him deeply, I hesitated. I wondered if our relationship was too new, and I worried about the age gap between us. "Matthew, are you sure about this?" I asked. "We've only been together a short time and you're 3 years younger than me. Are you really serious about us?" He grinned and gently teased, "Charlotte, are you still stuck on that old idea that the husband should be older than the wife?" "It's not just that," I replied, a little defensively. "I just wanted to know if it bothered you." Matthew reassured me with a light laugh, "Chill, Charlotte. You're a modern woman. These old notions don't matter anymore." His confidence in our future together slowly eased my worries. I agreed, and soon after, we met each other's families to share our decision. While my father, Peter, had no reservations and seemed genuinely happy about the wedding, my mother pulled me aside for a private conversation. "Charlotte, honey, I hope you've talked about your finances with Matthew," she whispered, her face showing a trace of concern. "Yes, Mom, don't worry about that," I reassured her. She pressed on, "I just want to make sure that your career success, especially since you're doing so much better than Matthew, doesn't become an issue. You know, sometimes men can feel overshadowed by those things." "Mom, Matthew is really sweet and understanding," I explained. "He doesn't have those kinds of insecurities. He's even agreed to take on more household chores since my schedule is so hectic." "That's good to hear, dear. Just take care of yourself," she said, her tone softening. Despite her reassurance, her words lingered in my mind. I realized I'd never had a detailed conversation about finances with Matthew, nor had I asked him about his income. While my financial independence meant I wasn't overly concerned with his earnings, I recalled that Matthew had asked about my salary even before he proposed. The thought of it unsettled me for a moment, but I chose to push the worries aside, deciding to focus on the excitement of starting our married life together. After the wedding, we celebrated with a honeymoon in Hawaii, a generous wedding gift from my company. We truly embraced the joy of our time together, savoring the beginning of our new life. However, about a month later, Matthew came to me after dinner with a serious expression. "Honey, I'm sorry to ask this, but I need your help," he said, looking uneasy. "What's going on, Matthew? Is everything okay?" I asked, my concern growing. "Well, no. My parents are having some issues," he began. "They live in an apartment on the second floor, and without an elevator, it's becoming difficult for them as they get older." I understood the situation right away. "I see. Why not move them to a ground floor unit, or somewhere with an elevator?" I suggested. Matthew hesitated, then steered the conversation in another direction. "Actually, Charlotte, I was thinking more along the lines of building a house for them," he admitted, surprising me with his proposal. I paused, taken aback. "Okay, but I hope you realize how expensive it is to build a house, I replied, trying to grasp the scope of his idea. I tried to gauge Matthew's understanding of the financial commitment he was suggesting. "Do you realize how much this will cost?" I asked, hoping to get a sense of his plan. "Yeah, I know," Matthew replied, though his tone lacked confidence. I pressed further. "Do you have enough savings, or are you thinking about taking out a loan?" Matthew hesitated for a moment before answering. "Charlotte, I was actually hoping you could lend me the money to build the house," he said, his request catching me completely off guard. I was stunned, unsure of how to respond. "Wait, what? But you know I've been saving to buy my own house someday, right?" "Yeah, but since you earn well, I thought it wouldn't be a problem for you," Matthew said, his voice taking on a more assertive tone. "But Matthew, I'm not sure I can lend that much money," I replied, feeling the pressure mounting. "Why not?" he asked, his frustration starting to show. I was at a loss for words. I finally managed to say, "Okay, let me think about it. I'll let you know." "I'll wait for your answer," he said, leaving the conversation hanging in the air. That night, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours turning the situation over in my mind. Lending my hard-earned savings to build a house for his parents felt risky. My money was meant for my own future security, including buying a home and saving for retirement. The next morning, as I was heading out for work, Matthew hugged me and said, "I'll be waiting for your decision. Let's talk over the weekend. I know you're in a rush now." Conflicted and uneasy, I sought advice from a colleague. She suggested I make the financial arrangement official with a contract. "Have Matthew sign an agreement to ensure he repays you," she advised. "It's important to protect your interests." That sounded like a sensible approach, so that evening I told Matthew, "I can lend you the money, but you'll need to sign a contract agreeing to repay me within 4 years. To my surprise, Matthew didn't hesitate. "Okay, I'll sign it," he said. When I handed him the papers, though, his laughter at the mention of the legal implications made it clear he hadn't fully grasped the seriousness of the situation. "I'm serious, Matthew," I said, holding his gaze until he realized I wasn't joking. "Here are the papers." He sighed, rolled his eyes, and with a smirk, said, "Fine, I'll sign." And he did. After I transferred the money and Matthew signed the contract, I thought the legal safeguards would ease my concerns, but despite those protections, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Matthew's salary wasn't substantial, and I doubted his ability to repay the loan. Then, his behavior began to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. Since taking the loan, Matthew became increasingly distant and his actions more peculiar. He started coming home late, often too exhausted to help around the house. Whenever I voiced my frustrations, he brushed them off, claiming his job was overwhelming. My feelings for him began to fade as he grew more detached, spending most weekends overseeing the construction of his parents' new home and, at times, not coming home at all. Instead, he opted to stay at his parents' place, further deepening the rift between us. The situation was taking its toll on me. I could no longer ignore the growing distance between us, and I decided it was time to confront Matthew. "Matthew, do you realize how distant you've become? It feels like you're taking advantage of living here without contributing anything," I said, frustration bubbling to the surface. His response was sharp and dismissive. "What do you mean? How dare you accuse me like that? You knew my financial situation when we married. You chose this." I was stunned by his audacity. "Excuse me, I'm not trying to start an argument, but how can you be so indifferent? I'm even more upset about this housewarming party at your parents' new place tomorrow. A party for the house I funded, which you never even told me was finished." Matthew almost scoffed. "Oh, my bad, I must have forgotten. Please, be our guest," he said nonchalantly, then left the house humming, as if utterly unbothered by the gravity of our conversation. Fuming with anger, I wanted to lash out, to break something, but I managed to hold myself together. An hour later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. "Hello, just calling to let you know we're having a housewarming party at the new house tomorrow," she said casually. I hung up without saying another word. I was certain that Matthew had prompted her to invite me, not out of genuine desire, but simply as an afterthought. His indifference, paired with the casual invitation from his mother, left me deeply hurt and questioning the very foundation of our relationship. I had always been wary of Matthew's relationship with his mother, especially given her cold demeanor toward me from our first meeting, which had only worsened after our wedding. Despite this, I didn't want to create more tension between us. I worried that if I skipped the event, Matthew and his mother would use it against me, accusing me of being envious of their new home. Reluctantly, I decided to go. I decided to attend the housewarming, determined to maintain a composed, if somewhat forced, demeanor. As I arrived at the newly built house, I couldn't help but notice the entrance, beautifully adorned with floral decorations. Matthew and his mother were greeting guests warmly. When my mother-in-law saw me, her reaction was far from enthusiastic. "Oh, you came. I thought you wouldn't bother," she remarked with a hint of surprise. "Why would you think that?" Matthew chimed in, before ushering me inside. Inside, I was met more warmly by my father-in-law, who was sitting alone. His genuine smile and the sincere gratitude he expressed for my financial help were the only moments of comfort in an otherwise uncomfortable evening. It was painfully clear that neither Matthew nor his mother had acknowledged my contribution to their new home. Throughout the evening, I felt more and more isolated. Matthew and his mother barely interacted with me, leaving me to engage in half-hearted conversations with distant relatives. I found myself counting down the moments until I could leave what was rapidly becoming a toxic atmosphere. After most of the guests had departed, I approached my father-in-law to say goodbye. "Take care of yourself," I said kindly. Just then, my mother-in-law interjected sharply, "You don't need to worry about my husband. Focus on your husband instead of neglecting him." Confused and upset, I responded, "What do you mean? I've never neglected Matthew. He volunteered to help with chores because I work full-time, too." Her accusations grew harsher. "You've been a terrible wife, forcing my son to do all the work around the house. And how could you coerce him into signing that financial agreement? You've been nothing but cruel to him." "I haven't forced Matthew into anything. The agreement was mutual, to ensure financial security. How can you say I've abused or tortured him?" I replied, shocked by her words. At that moment, my father-in-law stood up for me. "Marilyn, stop. Why are you attacking her instead of appreciating what she's done for us?" But Marilyn wasn't having it. "Just stay out of this and go inside," she snapped at him. The situation was excruciating, and it was clear that no amount of reasoning would change her view of me. As the evening went on, I became more disillusioned with both my relationship and the family dynamics I had found myself tangled in. I was completely taken aback by Marilyn's rude behavior toward Alan and, soon after, her cruel words toward me. "You should be grateful my son even married you. Who else would marry someone old and unattractive like you?" she sneered. Her words stung deep, and I lost my temper. "How can you speak to me like this?" I retorted, my voice rising with frustration. Matthew quickly intervened, scolding me. "Charlotte, watch your language. How dare you raise your voice at my mother?" "Didn't you hear how she just insulted me?" I replied, bewildered by his lack of support. Matthew dismissed me with a roll of his eyes. "I can't deal with your tantrums anymore," Matthew snapped. "Tantrums? Do you see how both you and your mother are treating me?" I exclaimed. "I can't stand to be around this negativity anymore. I don't want any part of it in my new dream home. Just get out." Matthew's response was cold and cutting. "What? Yes, I don't want to live with someone as despicable as you. You've been living off my income, and now you call me trash? You're pathetic. Charlotte, let's be clear, you married me because you thought you couldn't land someone as handsome as me, given your age and looks, even though I wasn't earning much. So, you have no right to complain about money now." A surge of anger and betrayal rushed through me. "I can't stay with someone so shallow. I want a divorce, and I want my money back," I yelled. Matthew laughed maliciously. "Sure, go ahead and get your divorce, but remember, you'll have to pay me if you want it." "What the hell? You should be the one to pay, since you want the divorce," I argued back. Matthew's demeanor turned sinister, a side of him I had never seen before. "You'll have to give back the money I lent you, or I'll sue you," I threatened. "Go ahead and find your stupid papers first." Mocking me, he retorted, "You're wasting your time." Feeling numb and utterly defeated, I left. They had insulted and degraded me beyond endurance. I went straight to the bank, where I had secured the papers in a locker, only to discover the document was missing. When I checked the bank log, I saw that Matthew had accessed the locker months ago. We had opened the joint account after our wedding, intending for both of us to contribute, but it turned out I was the only one putting money in. This revelation only deepened my shock and sense of betrayal. After the unsettling discovery, I checked my wardrobe, where I also kept a copy of the loan agreement, but it too was gone. It became painfully clear how deeply Matthew had manipulated our relationship from the start. His charm at Grace's party, his focus on my financial status, living comfortably off my earnings, and emotionally pressuring me to finance his parents' house. Every move had been calculated. His final act? Attempting to steal the agreement to prevent me from reclaiming my money. But I had anticipated his deceit. Sensing his eventual betrayal, I had taken the precaution of keeping the original documents at my parents' house, storing copies at the bank and in my wardrobe. Despite the emotional turmoil and the insults I endured, I was relieved I had trusted my instincts. I immediately called my mom and explained everything. She was furious. "You need to sue Matthew and his mother for everything they've done," she suggested. During our conversation, she confessed, "I've always had doubts about Matthew's intentions." "Did you know about his motives?" I asked. "No, not exactly," she replied, "but I sensed his eagerness wasn't genuine. He rushed into marriage so quickly." "You're right, Mom. I should have been more cautious. When you asked if we discussed our finances, I lied and said we had. I never really did, nor did I inquire about his earnings, because I wasn't concerned about his money. Take this as a lesson, dear, don't trust someone so readily," she advised me with a heavy heart but clear mind. I hired a lawyer and prepared the divorce papers. I included an official notice demanding that Matthew repay the borrowed amount within 4 years. If he failed to comply, the court would be authorized to sell his property to reimburse me. When Matthew and his mother received the divorce papers and repayment notice, they were caught off guard. Suddenly, they were the ones feeling desperate, trying to reach out to me, but I was resolute in my decision to protect myself from further deceit. I ignored all their attempts to contact me, blocking their numbers. Matthew even tried to reach my parents, but they dismissed his calls. He left a voicemail on my office phone apologizing, professing his love, claiming he was misled by his mother's influence, and hoping for reconciliation. But Matthew's history of manipulating my emotions had taught me to be wary. I deleted the voicemail and ensured his number stayed blocked. Matthew's lawyer later sent a message, pleading for me to forgive at least 60% of the debt, citing Matthew's inability to meet the repayment terms due to his low salary. I dismissed the request outright. After everything, the deceit, the personal attacks, it was unthinkable to me that he would expect any leniency. 4 years dragged by. Matthew struggled to gather even half of the owed amount, resorting to taking out loans. Given his modest income, the bank's loan offerings were insufficient, and he was forced to sell the house he had once banished me from. Ultimately, he moved back into his parents' old apartment. Grace, a mutual friend, informed me that the local community had turned cold toward Matthew and his family after the truth emerged. Marilyn, his mother, resorted to working as a nanny, her behavior having alienated her from many. Matthew faced ostracization at work, which led him to resign and relocate to another city. Even Alan, Matthew's father, left Marilyn and moved to the countryside to retire in peace. Amid these developments, my personal life took a positive turn. I began dating Wayne, a 37-year-old colleague. We had known each other for years but only connected romantically after an office party, a year following my divorce. This time, I approached the relationship with caution, taking the time to understand and appreciate our connection before making any serious commitments. Reflecting on everything, I felt no sympathy for Matthew or Marilyn. Their outcomes were just consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the budding relationship with Wayne, cherishing our moments together and looking forward to what the future might hold. My name is Lisa, and I once believed my life was perfectly in order. I held a prestigious role as the head of marketing, shared a loving relationship with my husband, Ethan, and enjoyed the comfort of financial independence. Paying our mortgage on my own filled me with pride, adding to my sense of accomplishment. Family was central to our lives, with Ethan's younger brother, Brian, and their mother, Amy, as constant presences. After losing their father years earlier, the brothers' unwavering devotion to their mother was something I deeply admired. It was heartwarming and made me appreciate Ethan's dedication even more. Amy seemed to accept me at first. During family gatherings, she would chat with me about my work, often remarking with a nod, "Marketing, huh? Sounds important." Her comments reassured me that I was valued, and I felt welcome in Ethan's close-knit family. The early years of our marriage were filled with joyful weekends, festive holiday meals, and lively game nights. I fondly remember one Thanksgiving at Amy's house, where laughter and chatter filled the air, making me feel like I truly belonged. But everything began to change during a New Year's Eve party. While refilling my wine glass in the kitchen, I overheard Amy mocking Julie, a single mother struggling to make ends meet. commenting on her inexpensive dress and implying she didn't belong. The words stung, not because they were directed at me, but because they revealed a side of Amy I hadn't seen before. What I once dismissed as harmless teasing now seemed cruel. As time went on, these snide remarks became more frequent. Amy would huddle with Ethan and Brian, whispering and laughing at others' expense. It was uncomfortable to witness, and I found myself questioning the family dynamics I had once admired. The breaking point came one Easter Sunday when Amy openly criticized a relative's financial decisions in front of everyone. Unable to hold back, I stood up and confronted her, calling out the rudeness of her remarks. The room fell silent. Amy, dripping with sarcasm, dismissed my concerns, saying I was too sensitive. I turned to Ethan for support, but he stayed quiet, his eyes avoiding mine. After that, family gatherings became unbearable. I often found myself alone, sipping my drink, while Ethan stayed by his mother's side. Occasionally, he'd glance at me with an apologetic look, but he never stood up for me. One evening, after yet another tense dinner, I confronted him. "Why can't you ever stand up to her?" I asked, my frustration spilling over. Ethan sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "She's my mother, Lisa. What do you expect me to do?" "I expect you to tell her she's being cruel. I expect you to stand by me," I said firmly, but he never did. Eventually, I started avoiding family events, coming up with excuses, work emergencies, migraines, anything to escape the judgment and cold stares. Just as I thought things couldn't get more strained, life took an unexpected turn. I was pregnant. When I saw the 2 lines on the test, my hands trembled. I called for Ethan, who rushed in, concern etched on his face. When I showed him the test, his reaction, a mixture of shock and tentative relief, gave me a fleeting hope that this baby might heal the growing rift between us. The pregnancy, however, was far from easy. I suffered constant nausea and dizziness, with the looming threat of miscarriage hanging over me. My health deteriorated to the point where I had to quit my job and go on bed rest. A rare complication caused my eyesight to worsen, potentially permanently. Through it all, Ethan seemed to drift further away. He came home late, or not at all, leaving me to face these challenges alone. The day of my C-section arrived sooner than expected due to my worsening vision, which made natural birth too risky. Lying on the operating table, I was consumed by a swirl of fear and anticipation, unsure if this new chapter would bring healing or only deepen the cracks in our lives. When I asked for Ethan after the surgery, the nurse informed me he had chosen to wait outside. The procedure itself went smoothly, and hearing my son's first cries was a transcendent moment. My heart overflowed with love and awe at this new life, but the joy was short-lived. Ethan eventually appeared in the recovery room, his expression clouded with discomfort and irritation. "Lisa, we need to talk. This isn't right," he said abruptly, his words cutting through my fragile state. He criticized the necessity of my surgery, dismissing it as unnecessary, and lamented that men shouldn't be present during childbirth, as it went against some outdated norm. His words struck a painful chord, leaving me stunned. Before I could respond, he stormed out, muttering that the hospital environment was too overwhelming for him. I lay there, reeling, not just from his words, but from the realization that the man I once loved deeply was no longer the partner I needed. The weeks that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings. Ethan's presence became increasingly rare, and when he was around, his lack of support was glaring. One night, as our baby cried inconsolably, Ethan groaned from the bedroom. "Can you shut him up?" he growled. "I'm trying," I replied, exhaustion thick in my voice. "He's teething. It hurts him." Ethan's patience was non-existent. "All you do is focus on the kid. What about me? What about our sex life?" I was floored by his insensitivity, still recovering from major surgery and running on fumes. His complaints felt like a cruel reminder of how far we had drifted apart. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan's dissatisfaction only grew. One evening, while I was soothing our 7-month-old, he announced, "You need to go back to work." I stared at him, shocked. "But the baby?" "We'll hire a nanny," he interrupted sharply. "We can't keep living like this. We need the money." Though I wanted to argue that our son needed me, and I wasn't ready to leave him, the cold resolve in Ethan's eyes silenced me. With a heavy heart, I began job hunting. Finding work with my compromised vision was challenging, but eventually, I secured a position at a smaller company, though the pay was far less than before. When I shared the news with Ethan, his reaction was predictably dismissive. "That's it?" he scoffed. "We're paying a nanny for this?" Tears stung my eyes. "I'm doing my best, Ethan. It's not easy with my eyesight," I pleaded. Excuses, he muttered before walking away, leaving me crushed and alone in my efforts. This became my new reality. Mornings were a frantic rush to work, guilt gnawing at me as I left my son with the nanny. My days were a struggle, navigating my job with limited vision, and my evenings were a constant battle for my son's attention amidst Ethan's growing resentment. Time blurred together, days turned into weeks, and weeks into years. Before I knew it, 3 years had passed since my son's birth, each one marked by the strain of work, motherhood, and an ever-widening chasm between Ethan and me. I cherished my son deeply and found immense joy in witnessing his milestones, yet, family gatherings remained a source of stress, especially due to Amy's behavior. She would play the role of the doting grandmother when others were around, but her disinterest was unmistakable. "Come to Grandma," she cooed in a syrupy voice, arms outstretched toward my son, yet he clung to me, turning his face away from the woman he barely knew. Amy's expression soured, and her voice grew sharp. "What have you been telling him about me?" she accused. "You're turning my grandson against me." I sighed, weary. "He just doesn't know you well, Amy. If you visited more often. Don't you dare blame this on me," she snapped, cutting me off before storming out to complain to Ethan. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, my world tilted again. Holding a pregnancy test in my trembling hands, I stared at the positive result. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. My first pregnancy had been so fraught, my health so compromised. Could my body handle another? As I pieced together the timeline, it dawned on me that I was already well into my first trimester. The decision, it seemed, had been made without my full awareness. With shaking hands, I dialed Ethan at work. "What is it?" he asked, his tone impatient. "Ethan, I began, my voice faltering. There was a pause before he replied dismissively. "Look, Lisa, I'm busy, we'll talk later. Just don't quit your job, okay? We can't afford that." The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone, feeling lonelier than ever. Thankfully, this pregnancy proved less arduous than my first. The morning sickness was manageable, and my vision remained stable, allowing me to continue working. I was determined to support my growing family. Yet, as my belly grew, the distance between Ethan and me seemed to grow even more. He spent increasing amounts of time at his mother's house, often returning home late. One evening, exhausted from managing our toddler and my pregnancy, I mustered the courage to ask Ethan for help. As he walked through the door, I said, "Hey, can you read him a story? I'm so tired." Ethan glanced at us, then at his watch. "Can't. I promised Mom I'd help move some furniture. Don't wait up." And with that, he was gone, leaving me alone with our son and my tears. By the 7th month of my pregnancy, Thanksgiving was upon us. I busied myself with preparations, and soon, guests began to arrive. My parents pitched in immediately, filling the house with warmth and the comforting buzz of chatter and laughter. Just before dinner, the doorbell rang again. It was Brian, Ethan's younger brother, and he wasn't alone. "Everyone, this is Christine," Brian announced, introducing his fiancée. The room's mood shifted to joyous congratulations. Amy arrived shortly after, her eyes lighting up at the sight of Christine. Throughout dinner, Amy lavished Christine with attention, peppering her with questions about her job. "A manager at a national bank? How prestigious," Amy gushed, clearly impressed. Then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, Amy said, "Christine here makes $220,000 a year. Now that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful." Her words hit me like a slap, especially when she threw a pointed look my way and added, "Unlike some people, who can only pop out babies and breed poverty." The sting of her words cut deep, but I swallowed my pain, determined not to let her see me falter. I felt my cheeks flush with humiliation. My mother, sitting beside me, bristled, ready to defend me, but I gently placed a hand on her arm, silently urging her not to escalate the situation. Amy, sensing her advantage, continued with her voice dripping in faux sweetness. "You know," she said, looking around the room, "why don't we continue this lovely evening at that new restaurant downtown? My treat, of course." Before I could process what was happening, Amy, Ethan, Brian, and Christine were heading out the door. Ethan didn't even glance back. The festive spirit drained from the room, and soon, one by one, the other guests began to leave, offering polite but thin excuses. Only my parents stayed behind, their presence a silent show of support, yet I declined their offers to help clean up, insisting they needed to rest. After they left, I sank onto the couch, my tears falling unchecked. The silence of the house was deafening, broken only by my sobs. My hand rested on my growing belly as I grappled with the overwhelming reality of how my life had spiraled to this point. Hours passed. The sky began to lighten when I heard the front door creak open. Ethan stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. He didn't say a word, heading straight to the bedroom without so much as a glance in my direction. Shaking, I picked up my phone and mindlessly scrolled through social media, and there it was, photos of Amy, Ethan, Brian, and Christine at an upscale nightclub. They were all smiles. The caption cutting like a knife, "Best Thanksgiving ever with my real family." As my due date approached, a mix of excitement and dread weighed heavily on me. The doctors had scheduled another C-section due to the short interval since my last. I tried to focus on the arrival of our baby, but Ethan's growing distance loomed like a dark shadow over my thoughts. One cold winter afternoon, I noticed Ethan unpacking bags full of summer clothes. Confused, I asked, "What's all this?" "Just saw a good sale," he replied casually, avoiding my gaze. "Thought I'd update my wardrobe." Something didn't sit right, but with the baby's arrival so close, I pushed my suspicions aside. I had been diligently saving to cover the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 4-year-old. Thankfully, my workplace had approved 3 months of unpaid leave, but the weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever. Then, just 5 days before my scheduled C-section, chaos erupted. I was resting when Ethan and Amy burst through the door, urgency written across their faces. Following them to our bedroom, I watched in shock as Ethan hurriedly packed the new clothes. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice rising with panic. "We're all going to Brian's wedding in Hawaii," Ethan replied curtly, tossing shirts into a suitcase. My heart pounded. "But my C-section is in 5 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" "You'll manage. You always do," Ethan said coldly, zipping up his suitcase with finality. Before I could argue further, Ethan and Amy were out the door, leaving me standing there, stunned and breathless. Reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. Frantic, I checked our joint account, and my heart sank. It was empty. Every dollar I had saved was gone. With trembling fingers, I called Ethan. He finally answered, snapping, "What?" "The money, Ethan. All our savings. Where is it?" I stammered, my voice barely steady. There was a pause before his cold laughter rang out. "We needed it for Brian's wedding gift. Don't be so greedy, Lisa." Then the line went dead. Before I could process his words, a sharp pain tore through my abdomen. Looking down, I saw a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. Panic gripped me as I realized the imminent danger. My previous C-section scar put me at high risk. Clutching my phone with one hand and my belly with the other, I dialed emergency services. The hospital was a blur of doctors shouting and machines beeping. Hours later, I woke to the rhythmic sound of monitors and my mother's tear-streaked face hovering over me. "Lisa," she whispered, squeezing my hand, "you're okay. The baby's okay." Slowly, the gravity of what had happened set in. I had almost lost my life, and my baby. 5 days after the emergency C-section, I was recovering faster than expected. The doctors were impressed, and I was cleared to go home. Yet during that time, Ethan didn't call, not once, not to check if I was alive, not to ask about his newborn son. That's when I knew our marriage was over. I reached out to my parents, asking if I could stay with them. They welcomed me and my boys without hesitation, providing not just a home but the emotional support I desperately needed. While they doted on their grandsons, I began resting and researching divorce lawyers, quietly gathering the necessary financial documents. A week after I left the hospital, Ethan finally called. I ignored the first 5 calls but answered on the 6th. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" he demanded, his tone laced with anger and confusion. Calmly, I replied, "I'm at my parents' house with our sons. I've filed for divorce." His reaction was a mix of disbelief and mockery. "Divorce? Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you?" He laughed bitterly. "Everything you've done?" I snapped. "Like abandoning me before I gave birth? Like stealing our savings?" "Oh, get over it," he scoffed. "I'll pay you back. Besides, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He rambled on about a job offer from Brian's new wife, Christine, who had promised to make him wealthy through some financial venture. "You never believed in me, Lisa," he spat. "You always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now. And you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The divorce was swift. Ethan didn't contest much. He returned the money he had taken and was ordered to pay alimony. Since I had been solely responsible for the mortgage payments, the judge awarded me the house. The day I returned to what was now solely my home, Ethan was packing his belongings. As I entered with my toddler and newborn, he sneered. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he jeered. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." As he left, a profound sense of relief washed over me. The house felt brighter, freer, finally rid of his shadow. A year and a half later, life had settled into a steady rhythm. I balanced work and motherhood. It wasn't always easy, but we were happy, healthy, and thriving. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, a news alert flashed on my phone. My jaw dropped as I read the headline, "Local banker exposed as fraud leaves family in ruins." Christine, the so-called financial genius, had orchestrated an elaborate scam. She had convinced Ethan, Brian, and Amy to invest in a non-existent company, even taking out massive loans to fund Brian and Christine's extravagant Hawaii wedding, the very event Ethan had abandoned me for. Christine wasn't a banker at all. The office she had shown them was a short-term rental, part of her elaborate con. She vanished with millions, leaving behind nothing but forged documents and shattered dreams. Ethan and Brian were left destitute, their debts unmanageable. Amy lost her home, her car, and even basic belongings. Through the grapevine, I learned she had taken a cashier's job, struggling to afford rent and groceries. Then my phone rang. It was Amy. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Lisa," she began timidly, her usual commanding tone gone, "we need your help. The children need their father and grandmother. You can't turn your back on family in times like this." I took a deep breath, memories flooding back, being humiliated, left alone while pregnant, my savings stolen. "Family?" I replied firmly. "You weren't concerned about family when you left me pregnant and in danger. You weren't concerned about family when you helped steal my savings. You weren't concerned about family when you belittled me." Amy tried to interrupt, but I pressed on. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I'm not responsible for the choices you, Ethan, and Brian made. My priority is my children, and I won't expose them to the instability you've brought upon yourselves. Please, don't contact me again." I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. As I set the phone down, a weight lifted from my shoulders. It was finally, truly over. Shouldn't you be helping more around the house? If this is the kind of spouse you're going to be, maybe you should just leave, my mother-in-law snapped, her words sharp and gaze piercing. I was taken aback by her harsh tone. Beside her, my sister-in-law added dismissively, "You always look exhausted but never seem to get anything done." Feeling overwhelmed, I turned to my husband, Matthew, hoping for some support. "This is too much, don't you think? Your mom and sister are being really harsh," I said, trying to find understanding in his eyes. His response only deepened my distress. "I agree with them," he said bluntly. "I'm swamped with work, and it's becoming a problem that you're not helping more at home. Things are going well with the new part-time worker, and frankly, you're just slowing us down. Maybe you should find somewhere else to stay." Stunned by Matthew's words, I looked around at the three of them, feeling the weight of their judgment press down on me. Anger rushed through me, but I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and replied, "I need some time to think. My name is Lori, and I'm 35 years old. I've always balanced both my job and household duties. It's common for women to work after marriage, and I love my job. I've worked hard to excel in the company I joined right after college, but lately, everything feels like it's falling apart." One morning, as I was getting ready for work, Matthew came to me looking concerned. "Lori, can you take care of this?" he asked, handing me a file stuffed with receipts and bills. "You should get the cafe's finances in order." I smiled, trying to keep the mood light. "Sorry, I'm not good with that stuff," I replied. I met Matthew while he worked part-time at a cafe I often visited. After a few conversations, we started dating, eventually talking about marriage. Now, he owns the cafe, but despite his business skills, he struggles with the paperwork and often asks me to handle it. As I sighed, my mother-in-law added, "Lori, I'm craving Chinese food tonight. Could you rinse the rice well? Also, Denise and the kids are coming this weekend, so we need to plan their meals." "Sure, I understand." I nodded quickly, agreeing to her request before hurrying out the door, eager to escape the pressure mounting at home. I had hoped that moving in with Matthew would bring a new chapter in our lives together, but things had only gotten more complicated. Matthew soon suggested. My mom seems lonely living by herself. Why don't we move in together into our big house? So, here I am, living with his mother. To put it gently, she's not exactly skilled in maintaining a household. After my father-in-law passed, my mother-in-law started living off his pension, spending most of it on dining out or ordering takeout, leaving the domestic duties to me. Matthew, holding traditional views, seemed to think housework was solely my responsibility, and I ended up managing everything. To make things worse, Matthew's sister, Denise, often dropped by with her kids, further expanding my list of tasks. Weekends, which I had hoped would offer some respite, became chaotic as I entertained her children and cooked meals for the family. Then one day, Denise dropped a bombshell. "Lori, I'm getting divorced, and I'll be moving back here with the kids next month." I was stunned, momentarily speechless. "Really? Do you have something to say?" she prodded. I managed to reply, "It must have been tough. When are you moving?" "I want to move as soon as possible," she answered. Though surprised by the news of Denise and her kids moving in, I harbored hope that maybe her presence would make the household chores more manageable. We had a decent relationship, and I thought her moving in might bring us closer, maybe even encourage her to pitch in. Reality quickly set in differently. Denise, it seemed, was as averse to housework as her mother. She spent her days lounging on the sofa, often with a snack in hand, engrossed in TV. I couldn't help but wonder if her resistance to domestic duties had contributed to her marriage falling apart. Now, with the added task of preparing extra meals for her kids and packing lunches for kindergarten, my workload grew even heavier. My hopes for help from Denise were quickly dashed, and I found myself with even less free time. At my job, the workload ramped up significantly. I started early, often worked overtime, and returned home drained, only to be greeted by a cluttered, barely walkable living space. The mess intensified my exhaustion. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law never missed a chance to question me. "Is dinner ready yet?" or "Why are you home so late?" became their daily refrain, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of their judgment on my shoulders. The moment I step inside after a long day, the pressure starts to mount. "Lori, there's a mountain of laundry waiting. Don't use your busyness as an excuse to slack off," my mother-in-law chides sharply. Inside, I'm screaming. I'm trying my best, but I hold my tongue. Before I can even respond, my sister-in-law chimes in, pushing further. "Standing up to your mother-in-law is bold, Lori, but for the kids' sake, try harder to make homemade meals." Her words feel like a slap. Exhausted, I retort, though my voice is weary, "If you have so much free time, why don't you help out with the chores once in a while?" I've even overheard Matthew's sister joking, "Haha, since Matthew owns a store, Lori doesn't need to work, right? Maybe she should try harder at home." Their words stack up, suffocating me under the weight of expectations, as if I should do even more. One night, at my breaking point, I decided it was time to speak up to Matthew. "I've been incredibly busy lately, and neither your mother nor your sister is helping with the chores. It's really hard," I said, hoping for some understanding. Matthew's reaction was sharp. "Lori, you're not speaking ill of our family, are you?" he asked, his tone hardening. I steadied myself and explained, "That's not my intention, but it's challenging to handle everything on my own. If you could help out occasionally, it would make things easier for me." He responded dismissively, "I'm busy managing the store. It's not like a regular job. Housework is the wife's responsibility, right?" Disappointed by his lack of support, I sat alone afterward, feeling a mixture of frustration and helplessness. Then, a spark of determination ignited within me. "I'm not going to let this be the way it is," I thought. With a small but resolute fist pump, I grabbed my phone, opened my favorite online shopping app, and started adding essential items to my cart. By the time I finished my purchases, I felt a small victory, an act of control amidst the chaos. That night, I went to bed with a sense of accomplishment, ready to face whatever came next. A few days later, my eagerly awaited delivery arrived, transforming my routine. It included a state-of-the-art washing machine, a robotic vacuum that could navigate every corner of our home, and a rice cooker that promised perfect rice with minimal effort. Each item felt like a lifeline, offering a little relief and making daily life just a bit easier. As I set up the new washing machine, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law walked in, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Wow, Lori, you got such a fancy washing machine. The old one still worked, didn't it?" my mother-in-law asked, her tone laced with skepticism. I met her gaze with a calm smile, unbothered by her judgment. As I continued setting up the new appliance, It felt like a small, silent victory over the pressures I'd been facing. I calmly replied, "The old one was getting slow, and this new one can do the laundry much faster." Their attention quickly shifted to the robotic vacuum and the new kitchen gadgets I'd also upgraded. "I've updated these, too," I said, showing them with a hint of pride. These appliances, everything from the cleaning robot to the convenient cooking gadgets, were now my allies in managing the household more efficiently. "Lori, can we talk for a moment?" My mother-in-law's voice had a sharp edge as she beckoned me into another room. I followed, sensing a confrontation was coming. Once we sat down, the tension between us was palpable. "Why did you buy so many things?" she asked, her tone cold. "Do you really need all these new appliances, or is it just to make your life easier?" I tried to remain composed. "I thought it would help things run smoother around the house," I explained, choosing my words carefully, but I could feel the simmering discontent. My mother-in-law wasn't satisfied with my response. "Aren't we relying too much on machines?" she countered. My sister-in-law, standing by, waved her hand dismissively, signaling her agreement. Despite their resistance, I held my ground. The appliances we had were outdated, Matthew's busy with his store, and I thought being more efficient at home would help everyone. Matthew nodded, his expression neutral. "Maybe we should be more frugal," he suggested. His voice carried a tone of subtle reproach, and my frustration bubbled up. "Maybe you're right," I conceded quietly, but inside, I was fuming. The conversation had quickly escalated. "Are you even considering our household needs?" My mother-in-law's voice grew sharper. I stammered, caught off guard. "I am, but I'm just really exhausted," I admitted, feeling cornered. "That's enough," my mother-in-law snapped, her voice filled with disbelief. "I can't believe you're our daughter-in-law," my sister-in-law added, her expression dripping with disdain. "I'll watch over Matthew. We don't need someone like you here." I looked to Matthew, hoping for some support, but instead, I received a cold, dismissive response. "I understand what Mom and Sis are saying," he said, his words trailing off into uncomfortable silence. A chill lingered in the air as they left the room, and I sat there, the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. Despite their harsh words, my resolve only grew stronger. The appliances I had bought were necessary, not just for managing the household, but for my sanity. When I looked at Matthew, my heart sank. He gave me a cold smile and said, "I have my store, so I decide how to spend my money, but being with someone who spends without thinking might be too hard for me." His words stung, but I kept my composure, silently counting to 12 before responding. He continued, a cruel edge in his voice. "Also, I've noticed things have been going well with the new part-time girl at the store. She's more attractive than you are now. Maybe it's time for you to find a new place to live." A wave of anger surged within me, but I held it back. I took a deep breath, then calmly said, "All right, I'll look for a new home." "Finally, you understand," he replied smugly. "I'll feel much better without you around." That night, Matthew signed the divorce papers, and I left, carrying nothing but the essentials and the divorce papers in hand. No one tried to stop me, leaving me to wonder if they had ever really cared about me at all. After finalizing the divorce at the city office, I found a stylish apartment and started fresh. Around the same time, an unexpected opportunity came my way, a promotion to section manager, a role I had previously put off due to my family situation. I embraced this new role with vigor, dedicating myself to my work and feeling a renewed sense of purpose. One busy day, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was my former mother-in-law. Thinking we had nothing to do with each other anymore, I dismissed the call without checking the message. My new life had begun, and I wasn't looking back. A year passed, and one relaxing weekend, as I enjoyed my favorite music, my phone rang again. To my surprise, it was my former mother-in-law. I couldn't help but wonder what she wanted after all this time. I answered the phone. "Hello, is something wrong?" "Lori, I finally got through. I didn't think you'd answer after so many calls," my former mother-in-law said, her voice wavering with uncertainty. "Well, it's been a while. What's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral but cautious. She hesitated, clearly unsure of how to proceed, before asking, "How's your new life?" I gave a cheerful reply, masking any traces of tension. "It's great. I love my new apartment, and work is going smoothly. I even got a promotion, and I'm really enjoying the freedom." "That's good," she said. "Lori, can you come back home?" I was taken aback. "Why?" "We're struggling financially," she admitted, prompting me to think to myself that I had suspected as much. I responded cautiously. Matthew's cafe only makes about $2,000 a month, right? If no one else in the family works, things could be tough. You know about that? She asked, surprised. Yes, I replied. I handled all the accounting. Matthew pretended his business was thriving, but he was completely oblivious to the real financial situation. She seemed stunned. You knew all this and didn't tell us? We had no idea you were doing so well in such a big company or that you were contributing so much to the household expenses. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Yes, I contributed more than $5,000 a month. That's how you all managed after I left. The truth was that I had been covering the gaps in Matthew's business losses, which he had never acknowledged. And now, it seemed, reality had hit them hard. Lori, please come back. My former mother-in-law pleaded again. I sighed and asked, how's the cafe doing now? She sighed heavily. We might have to close soon. The part-time workers keep quitting. I smirked inwardly. It's hard to keep it going with his management style, isn't it? His little bit of pride doesn't help. Not doing proper work, I mean. How many women out there would support a guy like that? There was a long pause before she weakly responded. I never realized housework could be this hard. With 3 adults in the house, how can it be this chaotic? What are Matthew and your daughter doing? I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. As for Matthew, she continued, his staff has been quitting, and sales have dropped. When he found out, he just became downcast and has been lazing around at home. He used to spend money from the store without any restraint. And Denise doesn't do anything around the house. She even gets her allowance from me. She sounded defeated. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is really hard. I replied, my voice tinged with sarcasm. Denise once told me I was unnecessary because she was there. Please, Lori, my former mother-in-law begged. We're really in trouble. Living on just my pension is tough. I responded firmly. I have no intention of going back to that house. It must be hard living with all that baggage. She seemed lost for words. I almost felt sorry for her, but as I was about to hang up, she seemed eager to say something more. Lori, I'm really sorry. Can you reconsider? Her voice was drained with exhaustion. I paused, wondering if we could ever spend time together with smiles again. Was it really that hard without me? I asked, a mix of surprise and calmness in my tone. After a short pause, she sighed and shared more distressing news. Yes, there's an issue with the property tax. We might have to let go of the house. The call ended with a heavy silence. I reflected on the complex dynamics of the family I had left behind and the new life I had embraced. I see, I said, though I didn't want to be involved anymore. You'll have to figure out what to do with your family. I hung up and quickly set up my phone to block any more calls from her. Sitting in my room, holding my favorite mug filled with aromatic coffee, I savored my solitude, gazing out at the scenery. A spontaneous smile crossed my face. A few months later, as I passed by the cafe where Matthew used to work, I noticed it was now quiet and empty. The lively place I once knew seemed a distant memory, and I felt a twinge of nostalgia. It seemed they had closed the shop. While wandering around the old town, I got curious about what had become of my former in-laws' house. To my surprise, I saw a sold sign outside. By chance, I bumped into an old neighbor who filled me in. They had quickly sold their house and moved into a small apartment nearby. The new place was filled with loud arguments, and there was even talk about the smell of garbage, becoming a bit of local gossip. It sounded like things were tough for them, but as I looked at the old house, I wondered why they hadn't tried harder. A lot had happened since then, but I was living each day to the fullest. Recently, a handsome guy from my workplace had confessed his admiration for my hardworking nature. Now, we were enjoying dates, and I was excited about what the future held. If I ever get married again, I want it to be for real happiness. Thinking about all this, I felt a surge of excitement for the future.